I often think about, obviously it's not just the student, but it's the family. And that experience of the family is so critical because that is truly the basis of the relationship. It's not just the student, but it's the student's family partnering with the school together.
I'm Agnes Stowicki, Managing Editor with Our Kids. We're speaking with insiders from Canada's leading private and independent schools to bring you insights into school programs, culture, traditions, and leadership. This includes insights from parents, alumni, and administration.
Sure. Well, I'm in my third year as head of school here at Sacred Heart Halifax. And I am originally from Chicago, Illinois. And I have been part of the Sacred Heart Network for over 30 years. And so this is actually my fourth Sacred Heart school that I have worked in. Prior to here, I was the head of school in Houston, Texas, at a Sacred Heart school. And prior to that, I was at the Sacred Heart School in San Francisco for 15 years and began my career in Chicago as the director of religion for the school. The school there is very similar to the school here, where it is made up of students in grades kindergarten to eighth grade. The difference here is that we go all the way to grade 12. Um, so my journey toward Sacred Heart really began when I finished my education and had a degree in, it's called pastoral counseling, and found that I really wanted to utilize my skills and my passion of working with students. And I have noticed over my career that the use of counseling, you may not realize it, is actually more beneficial than an educational degree in some ways, just in the sense of the relationship you have with colleagues, students, all kinds of people that you meet, parents, having that connection with students and parents and faculty is so critical to the Sacred Heart. Well, I have a very clear mentor, someone who really inspired me in the way that they were leaders in the school. This gentleman was the headmaster of a school in San Francisco. And what inspired me about his work was his attentiveness to everyone he met and that sense of active listening that he was very much engaged in, giving people the opportunity to speak about their experience and then help them and support them through their journey. And I would say the one thing that made a difference for me in the relationship I had with him as a mentor is that he always encouraged me and always supported the work that I was doing. And that really inspired me to do the same thing with the people that I have worked with, to be an active listener, to support the work that is being done, and then to encourage those that I've worked with to challenge themselves and to be confident in the work that they do, and to know that the passion they have for the work that they do really is something that they need to tap into. And once they tap into that, students, faculty, school communities will truly benefit from that experience. Well, for one, the mission of the school is so clear. And to me, that is a great benefit because the mission is rooted in the 5 goals of Sacred Heart education, with a focus on spirituality, academics, serving others, the importance of community, and the importance of supporting students as they mature. That is the same mission in every Sacred Heart school around the world. Sacred Heart schools, this is a global mission. It's not just in Halifax, it's not just in San Francisco, but it's also in Europe, it's in Asia, it's in Africa. And so that's what makes the Sacred Heart distinctive, is that defined mission that is so clear that all the schools share. Now, what is unique about the Sacred Heart School at Halifax is that we are the only independent Catholic school in the city, but also in the province of Nova Scotia. And because of that, that distinctiveness of the mission is something that's not replicated in any other school, which is really important for those that are interested in joining the community. There's a very defined mission, and that mission is something that infuses and informs all that we do. So if I could use the example of a student that came to the school, I often think about, obviously it's not just the student, but it's the family. And that experience of the family is so critical because that is truly the basis of the relationship. It's not just the student, but it's the student's family partnering with the school together and growing together. And what I think is distinctive and what makes us a little bit different is that student's journey, as it pertains to their spirituality, but also their academics, is so important to tap into. In other words, our sense of reaching out and inquiring about a student's spirituality is very much a process of discovery. It is not a process of teaching rules of the faith. I often talk about Sacred Heart School is a Catholic school for students of all faiths. And that is so important in the sense of who we are, living in the world, the diversity of the world, and how when a student is part of our community, hopefully they will experience in a smaller version what the larger world is like. And in that process, they discover who they are, and they discover what they long to achieve, or how they want to become the kind of student or person that makes a difference in the world. And obviously, another part of our mission is about the focus on serving others, not just being concerned about the needs of themselves, but how they can make a difference in someone else's life, and how they can make an impact into the world. So that's very distinctive to our mission, and something that every student, as they journey through the program, begins to discover who they are and how they can be of service to others. So they're not necessarily isolating themselves and developing into this very incubated, isolated experience. It's very much an interaction with those around them. Yeah, I would say there's a synergy with them. And there very much is a process of one interweaving with the others. And I can give you an example of a student who may be struggling academically. And in that process of trying to meet their particular needs, the interaction that they have with the teachers is so critical. And that is so important because the relationship that the student has with the teacher can make a difference in how they develop academically. In other words, building the trust. And in that trust, the student gains a greater confidence and courage in their work, which is not easy to do. It takes time to really develop that skill of self-confidence, especially in the midst of a struggle. So for some of our students that may struggle academically, that's not a bad thing. Embracing the struggle helps them to understand that it takes time. No one's perfect. We make mistakes, but the key values and virtues that they develop, whether that's resilience or whether that's courage or whether that's just an ability to stick with something, is so important. And when they do that, they discover a part of themselves that they may not have known existed before. And when that happens in the relationship with the teacher and with their fellow students, that's the power of community. And so when you think about the interweaving of all of the goals, that's an example of how each element is sort of feeding into each other to support the student as they grow. I'm sure you're aware of the fact that we have a 176-year history. And so just that in itself, in terms of the school's presence in the city, is pretty remarkable. And when you ask someone in the city, what's the reputation of the school, they will often say excellent academics. And that is certainly true. The students that are part of the school community, when they leave and go on to university, they have many choices in terms of university choices, and do well in those places after they leave. And over the last couple of years, there's been the opportunity to kind of take a look at the structure of the program. And you may know that we begin with a co-ed model in the junior primary, and all the way up to grade 6, the students are in a co-ed setting. And then from grade 7 to 12, they are in a single gender environment, boys and girls. And so something that has developed over the last year that we are going to implement next year is a co-ed program in grades 10 to 12. Some like to describe that model as a diamond model. In other words, starting together, then going apart in those junior high years from grades 7 to 9, and then coming back together in grades 10 to 12. The purpose being helping those students in those later years to be prepared for the real world, where they will be in university in that kind of an environment and be challenged in that way. So that's very different. If you calculate 176 years and then think about that change that's going to occur, it's a big change. But it's something that our community has embraced. We reached out to our community and asked, is this something that you value? And obviously they responded, yes, that is something that's really important in moving forward and supporting our students. And so, we have a very distinct strategic plan too, that's focused on academics and innovation and sustainability and diversity. And in that strategic plan, that was one objective, to look at the model of the program, the grades and the way the students are arranged, and say, are there things that we can do in that model that will enhance the experience? And so that's very strategic to do that, because it's a very pointed, planned moment for the school to explore this new perspective and new trajectory, which is really exciting, because it can lead to some great new innovation in the program. Well, if I had to describe the kinds of families that are part of our community, that they come from professional occupations and backgrounds, and are very committed to their own work, and they value education and want the best for their children. But they also are looking for a community where they can feel that they are connected, and where they can relate to those in our community. What makes our community a little bit unique is that we are reflective of the city of Halifax, which has grown in its diversity over the last few years, and has really changed. The city looks different than it was 10 years ago. And I'm proud to say that our school, our students and our families are reflective in that change also, which is really important, to make sure that our students are having the experience of being with others that they see around the school nearby. And so the relationship with our families is so important. And obviously that begins with trust. And I have the habit of standing out in front of the school every morning at the front door to greet students and families when they come up. And to me, that is reflective of my intent to build relationships with the families, and to know that we're partnering together. And that's really the goal of our partnership together, is to convey to our families that we care about their children's growth and development, not only the academics, but their character and their integrity and their respect and responsibility, that's so important to everything that we do. And the way that we have that relationship with parents is building trust and helping them to know that they're welcome, and helping them to know that they belong to this community, because their children are part of it and they are part of it too. And so we want our parents to be involved, but that sense of trust has to be really developed at both levels, interacting together. You know, we want parents to feel like when they drop their students off in the morning, they're confident that we have the tools to help them develop into the best that they can be. I often think about conflict in a positive way, because conflict allows us the opportunity to tap into an energy that people feel. In other words, in any kind of disagreement or some form of not things not going the way that you would hope, there's an opportunity to deepen the relationship in that conflict, which I think is really important. Um, in the day to day with students, I might interact with students and say hello and say goodbye, and that's it. It's very surfacey. But in the midst of a conflict, you have the opportunity to really see another part of a person that you normally don't see. Um, and so what's really important to me about conflict is, as I mentioned at the very beginning, the importance of active listening and the importance of truly listening and paying attention to what the conflict is about. So that's a first piece to conflict that I always approach it in that way. The second part is that we need to find some form of a solution or a resolution or a form of restoring the relationship back to the way it was before. And so for students, that's really important, helping them to know that if there is a conflict and we've made a mistake or they've made a mistake, we can repair the relationship. And because that's ultimately what we're trying to do, to be a resource for each other. With parents, at times it can be difficult, especially when their hopes and dreams of their students' success doesn't match what the students' wishes are, or maybe what the students' habits are, or how their students struggle in certain ways. And so I could use the example of a student that may be struggling academically or socially, and the parents may have the impression that the problems all lie with the school, and the school needs to do something to fix it. And I would just go back to that comment that I made earlier about a partnership, that at times the answer is in the middle of all of that. It's in the middle of the conflict. It's in the middle of the expectations of what a teacher might expect of a student and what a parent might expect of their child. There really has to be an establishment of common ground where the parents and the school together listen, pay attention to each other, talk about what they hope for the student, and then, which another piece that I think is so important, which often happens here, is that the student is part of that conversation too. It's very important that they talk about their experience and where they are finding difficulties. And sometimes when you put a teacher, a parent, and a student in a room together, they didn't realize that what they were all seeking is the same thing. But they didn't realize that the angle that everyone was going at it was a little bit different. And parents and teachers understanding that the struggle a student may be going through is very difficult, whether that's some sense of anxiety or some sense of lack of confidence. Showing empathy towards the students and helping them to know that we're there to help them is so critical for them to know. And I've been in experiences like this with parents and students and teachers, and there is a light bulb that goes on after a meeting like that, because the conflict doesn't feel so scary anymore, and these sides are not polarized, but really there's been a coming together of understanding, but then also expectations. I like to think about the experience, their own individual experience of their own education and what lit the spark for them in terms of their curiosity for learning and the value of learning. And oftentimes I'll ask parents, what was that really got you excited about learning? And oftentimes they'll say a teacher, oftentimes they'll say the environment, and sometimes they'll say their friendships. But in that particular case, I think it's so important in the advice that I give parents is to think about their own experience and then conveying that to their children. You might use the example of the way a parent reads to their children when they're very young. Giving them, conveying that importance of reading is so much more than just sitting down and reading a book. It's about being with each other, and it's about discovering what's in the book together and talking about what the author is trying to convey in the story, in the narrative. All those little pieces of just having that experience of reading together is something that I try to help parents to understand. Whatever that feeling was for you, your children are probably feeling that too. And this school can somehow nurture that when you become part of this school community. It's a way that we support each other in the thirst for learning. I guess I would just like to stress that aspect of the spirituality, or the fact that what differentiates us in terms of our spirituality is really about helping students to discover that from within, and that being something that will serve them for the rest of their lives, helping them to know that there's more to the world than is visible. There's the transcendent aspects of our existence, and how who we are and the way we use our imagination in the world is really important to tap into. And that's different than many of the other school communities, or there are obviously other school communities that spend the time to talk about spirituality and to support a student's growth. But the way that we do it is all about tapping into that aspect of discovery, which I think is really important for a student to know, because as they grow older, they will be curious. And if they have that basis at the beginning, it's a much more informed spirituality.
For more information about this school, you can visit their profile at ourkids.net.